Apologies for the show starting later than normal. Yesterday was my friend's moving day, and I had to help out, so yeah, it's been a long night, I'm very tired, and we have a show to do, so let's go ahead and talk about today's topic, brought onto us by Darren Dreger. He was on TSN 690 the other day, and he gave a little bit of insight as to what happened with the Montreal Canadiens, Shea Weber, and the Arizona Coyotes, because last week, we made a video talking about how Shea Weber almost got traded to the Arizona Coyotes at the 2022 trade deadline. Instead, though, the Arizona Coyotes made a trade with the Winnipeg Jets to get on Brian Little's contract, and they also got a pretty good sweetener in an NCAA player. But for the Montreal Canadiens, the Shea Weber thing ultimately fell through. The entire video last week goes over that, so you can go ahead and watch that if you want the entire scoop. My opinions, what the Canadiens could, should, or would have done should things gone differently, and where we could go from here. But we had a few extended information given to us by Darren Dreger on TSN 690. So we will go ahead onto NHL Watcher's Twitter account because they write pretty much what it is that Dreger says. Darren Dreger on 690 says the only reason Shea Weber's contract was not moved to Arizona at the deadline was because there were papers that needed to be signed and money to be paid out. He expects his contract to be moved this offseason when they have more time to handle everything. Now, for Shea Weber and his contract, I mean, we all kind of know that it's a big one, and it was one of the reasons why there was even a lockout a few years ago, because you can't be giving out, 14-year contracts to players anymore, because Shea Weber has just that. There isn't any clause on his contract, it's just long. It goes till 2026. The guy is going to be 40, and the contract was signed back in 2012. So, yeah, lockout material, isn't it? Shea Weber's contract is the entire reason we're talking about this, because for the Montreal Canadiens, they do have themselves the opportunity to use this money as LTIR space. The problem becomes, at what point do you actually decide to use it? There's a conversation here in the replies to NHL Watcher's tweet. Relaxing person says, wouldn't it be better for the Montreal Canadiens to keep Weber's contract for the LTIR cap space? Darcy Armstrong replies, the issue then becomes performance bonuses on rookie contracts for teams that are already over the cap that presents a bonus overage penalty which gets penalized on the following year's cap if you are a rebuilding team with potential other top prospects. It's not ideal. This wasn't really the perfectly worded tweet, but I just kind of rephrased it so it sounds a little bit better. But the Montreal Canadiens, as we have seen with guys like Riley Kidney, Josh Waugh, these guys are getting contracts. It's not like they're going to make the team right away, but they are contracts getting paid. We noted this in yesterday's video about Riley Kidney, how even though Kidney might not make the Habs, he will still be getting like $90,000 a year because, hey, he's got a salary cap bonus. For Montreal, this isn't really ideal if you want to say you're going to have a lot of guys like this that are just kind of sliding down ELC contracts, extra bonuses on top of that, even though you might not be using any of those contracts towards your 50 contract availability, and even though they might not contribute significantly to your cap hit, you still would have something to gain by getting rid of Weber and his $7-point-something million, because it's not like the Canadiens are going to the cap anyway. Under a few specific circumstances this year, they were onto the cap because, I mean, yeah, you had so many injuries, so many guys were getting called up, sent down, whatever, so the team's cap was just kind of a disaster this year, but it's not really likely that the Canadiens go through that bad of an injury bug for 22-23. Right? I don't know, though. I don't want to tempt fate with the hockey gods because that doesn't seem like a bet I'd go out there and win. But either way, learning from Darren Dreger that the reason Arizona did not take on Shea Weber's contract was because there was extra papers that needed to be signed and money to be paid out. I'm kind of curious as to what that even means, you know? Like, paying out money to Shea Weber, yeah, he's got a paycheck every 2 weeks because he's an NHL player. Okay, not a player, but like he's a person on the roster, right? So whether or not he's going out there and playing or whatever, he's still making that $6 million that his actual salary is for 2022, or excuse me, yeah, 2021, 2022. Next year, though, that contract number goes down to $3 million. The year after that, he's only making $1 million. He'll be making $1 million for the last 3 seasons of his contract, but of course, because it was so loaded up front at the beginning, his AAV is absolutely huge. So I personally don't really understand what Dreger was talking about when he said, oh, there were papers that needed to be signed and money to be paid out, but at least there is the expectation that Weber will be traded sometime this offseason when the Canadiens will be able to sit down and say, okay, let's focus on Weber. Let's focus on that one little thing that was bugging us when we were trying to trade him before, and now we can sort that out and make sure everything works properly this time. You gotta remember, Kent Hughes was a pretty busy guy towards the trade deadline, from Arturi Lehkonen to Ben Sherratt to Tyler Toffoli. The guy had a lot in his hands, and so the idea of trading Shea Weber away too, and not really being able to do it right away, it doesn't really scream to me anything in the realm of incompetency or a lack of foresight or whatever. It's just, hey, the guy had so much to handle, he'll just trade the guy later. There's no real rush to trade Weber, right? So we can just wait it out, see what happens in the offseason, see what teams are going to be down there in the dumps next year for cap and they need money to get up to the cap floor. Or if you're a team that's already at the cap ceiling, you could be like, okay, here's Weber, you can spend an extra $7-point-something million over the cap, and you'll be fine. So we saw the same Arizona Coyotes team being a potential target, but I also am kind of relieved that it's not Arizona that Shea Weber is going to or has gone to, because as we talked about in last week's video, Brian Little was not a trade that the Arizona Coyotes went out there and needed. They were able to go out there and get another asset from the Jets in the process, and that was the big fear I had in the entire Shea Weber conversation we had last week. If you're trading Shea Weber over to Arizona, are you trading him to a team that needs Weber because they need to reach a cap floor or extend past a cap ceiling? Or are you being the team that is in need here by trading Weber away because of rookie player bonuses for next year's cap? If it's the latter, then hey, the Arizona Coyotes might actually have an opportunity to get a cool prospect or a good pick or two from Montreal, and I didn't really want that to happen. I wanted to wait until there was a team that came around like a Tampa Bay Lightning and a Brent Seabrook, or like some of these other teams that have used LTIR players to their advantage to bolster their roster for the postseason and go far in the playoffs. Hey, if there's a Vegas team out there that needs extra cap salary relief, they didn't get the Dadonov thing done, they could trade for Weber. They could go out there, get Weber, and they could put him on the LTIR, and there you go, you can spend a little bit more money over the salary cap. Boom, all of a sudden you can activate Pacioretty, Stone, Eichel, and Nolan Patrick at the same time. There are teams that will bite on that sort of opportunity. It's just dependent on whether or not they have the assets that Kent Hughes would feel are appropriate enough to say, okay, sure, here, take Weber, take our captain, we'll take this draft pick in return, and you can put him on your LTIR and do whatever it is that you would want to do. Obviously, Kent Hughes would be helping out other teams if he did that, but whatever, right? Who cares? You're helping out Vegas, you're getting a draft pick. Like, that's how it goes. Is Vegas even good enough to make the playoffs anyway next year? Yeah, they probably are, but like, this year was an anomaly, so I mean, Vegas specifically, that's just a team that popped into my head when I was talking about this. They don't even have too many assets anymore because they traded them all away, so they might not be the best team to go out there and consider a Shea Weber potential move, but either way, you can let me know in the comments below all your thoughts about this Weber thing and the Brian Little trade with Arizona, the actual trade that was done, and why Weber was not sent over to Arizona in the first place. We saw last week that the Arizona Coyotes did the Little trade in replacement for the Weber thing earlier this trade deadline, and whether or not you were concerned that Nathan Smith, a pretty good NCAA player, was sent over from Winnipeg with Brian Little to Arizona too, because when I think about that, I'm thinking, okay, if Weber went, like, would the Canadiens have had to trade a Riley Kidney or a Josh Waugh, both of whom they just signed a contract? So yeah, it's just some food for thought, right? Let me know in the comments all your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.